Oh shit, here we go again.
Well, it's that time again to rag on Skull Merchant, which at this point isn't even low-hanging fruit, but it's so far down it's hit the ground and pretty much rotten, much like the chapter itself. But hey, any chance to hate on Skull Merchant is a chance I'll take. Now again, for like the 5th time, the Skull Merchant is causing problems in Dead by Daylight. She really does feel like the reoccurring villain of this game, but instead of it being just for the survivors, killer mains also suffer because they have to remember that this is an actual chapter that exists, and it isn't just a collective hallucination, because no sane human being would ever allow this train wreck of a chapter to pass and be sold for $12.
Oh my goodness! Squidward!
Anyways, getting to the topic at hand today. The Skull Merchant is, and always has been, a very problematic killer for basically all parties involved, whether it be for survivors, killers, and hell, even the spectators suffer watching this killer. Skull Merchant is a killer that honestly seems like it was written by an AI and it shows. Her power as of now is split between two different aspects the same way Knight is. They design a killer who is heavily into zone defense and area denial, yet buff them and try to change them in a way to make them better in chase, while not de-incentivizing their ability to camp and defend. Yet her power has the skill ceiling of a Minecraft dirt shack and a skill floor so low, I'm genuinely convinced you could get a fucking monkey to play this killer and get at minimum a 2k. See, the Skull Merchant's power is simple and maybe a bit too simple. You place down a drone, and if survivors walk into the area, you're alerted and they slowly become scanned and exposed. But after a while, these drones go into scanning mode and can be turned off safely in an actually pretty cool minigame. I won't lie, this is actually one of the most unique and interesting parts of her kit. However, when survivors are being tracked, she gets a stacking speed boost. And here is already where some of the issues start to show. On one hand, these drones are supposed to be used, to shut down key points of the map, like shack, main building, or other generally strong loops. But you know where survivors need to be the most? That's right, generators. So why would you waste 1 or 2 drones shutting down some loops that survivors might run into when you could place down the drones on a generator that survivors will have to run into? I hate this killer, I really do. But I mean, realistically, this is the most practical thing to do with her power. Why bother using 1/4 of your kit on a mediocre loop when you can defend a key objective? This is the same issue that Knight has, where yes, you can use his power to shut down a loop, and I'll get to that later, but survivors could just go run the other way out of your loop and you've wasted your power and the whole cycle just repeats. Or you can place it on a gen and effectively block that generator for however long your power is up for. You push a button and get free generator defense. But then there's the actual part of the power that behavior is trying to push for, both of them in their so-called chase potential and trying to fix that. Look, I'll be honest with you, there's no point in trying to do that. Skull Merchant's kit is so fundamentally flawed at a structural level that you cannot salvage this kit without straight up reworking her. There's nothing in her kit that can simply be changed around number-wise, like making things happen X seconds faster or slower. See, when you get into a chase, you can either continue looping normally like an M1 killer or drop down one of your drones in the loop. Now, this isn't something unique that's a sole issue to the Skull Merchant herself, but it is still an issue in the game itself. There are many killers in Dead by Daylight whose power is just, I used my power and if you stay in the loop, I win, like trapping killers, artist, knight, etc. It's something not really fun because it can require a literal push of a button, and if they keep looping there, they'll walk into the trap or get hit by the power. So instead of being able to dodge or bait the killer like a pyramid head or twins, instead it's just hold down W and run to another loop when they use their power. This is just not fun at all, as there's no real brain power nor skill required for either side. Instead of taking your chance in the loop and trying to stall for as long as possible for your team, like say running around the main building against a plague or blight, you just have to hold W and leave, otherwise you'd get slowed down, trapped, hit, etc. You just can't make any sort of cool dodges against a bear trap or dodge a guard. All you can really do is look for your closest loop and run there, starting the cycle all over again. She also becomes undetectable if she stands in the drone's field long enough because I guess she needs it? Like as if being in chase with her wasn't annoying enough, let's just make it so that while you're in loops with tall walls, you can't even see her while you listen to her god-awful chase theme and blinding orange drone light. But what if you do decide to take down one of her drones? Now you're put in an even worse scenario. See, if you take down one of her drones, you get a little trap put on you. What this trap does is show your location to her at all times, give her a speed boost, and instantly break any pallet you vault. However, after you vault a pallet and it breaks, so does the trap. So let's see here. If you leave a drone up, you'll become exposed and you can't work on the generator. Should you decide to take down the drone, she is now faster, sees you no matter where you go or what perks you bring, and you still can't loot properly because you'll break the pallet if you decide to vault. Like, imagine if you had to vault a god pallet into shack and then it breaks while she's still faster chasing you. Like, it's just a infinite wombo combo. So realistically, this is a lose-lose scenario for the survivors, as either option leaves you fucked in the end. However, there is one teeny tiny Achilles heel to her power, and that is the fact that she only exposes you when you stay in her drone's field too long. Meaning that if you don't heal and just stay injured, there's no real consequence to staying in her fields besides the fact that she can see you while you're there, and that, she moves faster. So a true lose-lose-lose scenario. Leave the drone up, can't work on generators because you'll become exposed. Do the generator while injured so that you don't become insta-down by exposed? Well, you're now injured, meaning that you're louder and leave blood trails, and that whole time while you're in the drone's field, she's moving faster against anyone. Meaning that if you're working on the gen while in the field, that one survivor she's chasing, now she's faster against them. Oh, okay, then I'll take the drone down. Well, if you do that, you can't loop pallets properly anymore, and she's, faster. And if you decide to do that while injured because of the exposed effect, you're just totally screwed since you go down in one hit either way. You see why she's such a problem? But I haven't even gotten into the real issue of the true villain behind today's episode. Skull Merchant has one final hidden ability. Her third bomb bites the dust. Skull Merchant is a unique killer in the fact that she is the only killer in Dead by Daylight's history that can truly run out the timer and win the game. Before this, people didn't ever really think about the timer that was added due to hackers holding the game hostage because the hacker infestation had been, for the most part, fixed. However, due to the Skull Merchant's unmatched ability to defend a zone, she can effectively hold a 3-gen indefinitely. However, if a game reaches 1 hour in length, the match is instantly ended and all survivors are killed. She is the only killer in DBD who has ever done this, and it encourages the worst playstyle in gaming, which is stalling and running out the timer. In basically every game, running out the timer is seen as a cheesy, boring way to end the match, like in fighting games where one person gets a lead and instead of fighting and having to actually, play the game and trying, they'd rather just run around and dodge until the match ends and they win by technically having, more life or stocks, etc. It's a tactic that isn't really fun for anyone involved, as the opponent is trying to engage someone who doesn't want to play the game, and the spectators are bored because there's no real action going on, just like in Dead by Daylight. In the Skull Merchant's case, she can achieve this by setting up her 3-gen and constantly patrolling all of them, going generator to generator when she hears or sees someone get marked by the drones. Then either downing or chasing them off and kicking the generator to regress and defend it. Neither side gets to play the game. Survivors can't do generators because if they do, they get exposed and downed. If they do the drones, they can't loop and get downed. And if they wait and play patiently, the timer runs out and they all die. Again, a lose-lose-lose scenario. Now, I won't lie and say she's the only killer who can play in this super annoying playstyle, as there are many killers who have something like this, like Tombstone Myers, Alchemist Ring Blight, Iridescent Tape Sadako, etc., etc. However, Skull Merchant is the only killer whose base kit incentivizes this playstyle. She's just not a fun killer for anyone to play against and not interesting enough to play as. There's also still one saving grace about this whole thing, and that's the fact that just no one plays the Skull Merchant. Looking at her stats, she's in the bottom 10 killers being played. So, it's not like you're running into her very often like Wesker or Huntress, probably due in part that her kit is not interesting or fun or cool in any way, shape, or form, and the fact that, again, this DLC is $12! The survivors suck, the killers suck, nothing about this DLC is good. That is the only thing keeping us from this hell. Like, even if we look at her stats, she technically has the highest kill rate in the game. But that's probably just because, you have to play incredibly well to actually win against her, if she plays in her 3-gen camping way. That's another big issue with her kit, and that's if you want to actually break the 3-gen, you have to play in a pixel-perfect, coordinated way, so that she can actually be defeated. I'm sure all of you by now have seen the infamous match between Team Eternal and that random Skull Merchant. Like, if you listen to their comms during this match, it is so hectic. They have to play with pinpoint, pixel-perfect precision, constantly calling out where she is at all time. They constantly have to be playing perfectly in sync, calling out wherever she's going, whatever she's doing. Otherwise, she'd down one of them, hook them, kill them, defend the generator, etc. But this is not something that is practical for the majority of the game. The amount of players who actually play this game in voice comms is relatively, low. And it's an even lower odd for all 4 of the survivors to be playing together in a party like Team Eternal was doing. So her playstyle isn't something that's easy to play against for a casual survivor audience. That's probably why she has the highest kill rate in the game. Because if you want to break her 3-gen, as shown by Team Eternal, you have to play perfectly in unison. Otherwise, you just get down and die. It's not fun for the casual audience because, again, they have to play perfectly in order to beat her 3-gen potential. It's not fun for competitive players because, as seen by Team Eternal, you have to play perfectly, constantly shouting out wherever she is at all times. And it's not fun for the players or spectators because, she's so boring. And again, for that one infamous match, I'm pretty sure everyone can tell that Skull Merchant wasn't even playing seriously. There are so many times in that one match where you could say, oh, she could have downed that person, she could have hooked that person, she could have done X, Y, and Z. This Skull Merchant was playing in the most annoying and boring way possible and still almost won. They weren't even trying really. You can see how many times the Skull Merchant in this match had opportunities to down survivors and hook them, but didn't take them, because they were just simply trying to show off how overpowered this playstyle is, which was only defeated by one of the best Dead by Daylight teams in the world playing perfectly together. It's just baffling how something like this can be allowed in the game. There are a few ways to temporarily fix Skull Merchant until an overhaul for her kit comes, much like the current Sadako mini rework. My idea is just make it so you can't place your drones too close to generators, like how Pyramid Head's trails will disappear if you place them too close to a hook or generator. That way, if you do want to defend a generator, you'd have to place multiple drones in order to protect it, instead of being able to just place one on top that protects the whole gen for you and does your entire job for you. This sort of thing is fine for Knight since he only has one guard at a time and can't cancel his power unless he goes out of his way to hit it, meaning that unless he goes out of his way to disable it, he's left powerless and can only protect one generator at a time with his power. Meanwhile, Skull Merchant gets 4 drones that can stay up forever and can be cancelled with the push of a button. So at least make it harder for her to defend a generator, instead of being able to expose a survivor, move faster, and know where they are at all times because they want to play the game and do generators. Of course, you could also make the argument to fix the regens itself, but considering how easy it is to play this killer, even fixing that, they would still find a way to camp gens extremely well. It's not just a matter of being able to defend super well, but also the fact that she's not a fun and engaging killer as a whole. That's another part. Overall, Skull Merchant is one of the worst designed killers and needs a drastic rework. But considering how long the waiting list is for a rework, I don't think we'll be seeing that anytime soon. I'll call it here though, as I don't really have much else to say besides subscribe so that you can stay up to date on my videos and streams, eventually when that happens. So take care of yourselves and have a great one out there. Peace.